What's happening, guys? Brandon here, bringing you another episode of Modified Rides Podcast. Today, we went down to Texas. We've got Jesse from iCar down in Houston, Texas. Going to give a little background on who he is and what he does and give a little different perspective of the car world in Houston. So, Jesse, appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate it. Thanks for. I'm very honored to be out here with you.
I did get that right. You are in Houston, right?
Yeah, Houston. We're Katy area, so Houston's one big group of, I say, small suburbs. So, but yeah, we're in the Houston area, not too far from downtown.
So you'll yeah, like we talked today, you'll be at LST, but you're not doing a booth. I know we see you at a lot of shows doing your booth and kind of bringing some of your builds, but I guess this time you're just using your builds for other people's booths this year.
Yeah, so we will be out there at the fairgrounds this year. We don't usually do a booth there just because throughout the year, like you mentioned, we touch tons of shows in different communities in different states. So we've committed for certain companies that come out to enjoy Texas and this Lone Star Throwdown. We get a few stuff done for them. So that's how we've committed our time for LST to try to get something done for the ones coming in from out of town. So we'll definitely have a couple of rides out there this year, and let's see how things go.
I know we'll get into it later, but is your Ram going to be there?
Ram will not be there. I get DMs and texts every day on that thing. So I know it's been down for a while, but we're hoping this year we'll have it at a few good shows, and we're hoping to get the grand show at SEMA this year. I know I've promised a couple of years, but got a good friend of ours out in Dallas that's doing a lot of bead roll for me. So we just want it done right. I'm collabing with a few shops, trying to rub shoulders with some good talented people. So hopefully this thing will come out good.
I know that's kind of first linked up with truck. When I was building Cranberry, you were doing your front end swap and everything on yours, and then killed it with the interior. So we're just waiting on a bed now, pretty much.
Pretty much bed and engine bay, and of course we'll definitely have to do some more body work now that we're doing a lot of more welding and stuff. But that you mentioned Cranberry, that was one of my inspirations to do a Dodge. I don't know if I ever mentioned it. I was I was digging in my brain and like, man, I want to build me a Chevy. I like Ford, but then every corner I turned, someone was building something. It's like, well, man, how can I have? And then I came across Cranberry, and it's like, man, I'm doing a Dodge. So
I guess the first time me and you actually met, I guess it was SEMA 21 when I had Cranberry back in Dropstar's booth. So
yes.
And the good thing about when you meet somebody at SEMA, everybody has their badge with their names on it. So you walk up, the first thing you do is look down and like, oh, that's who you are.
Yes. Yep. That's how it worked. And I had wanted to see Cranberry and meet you for a long time. Since we were on looking at each other's profile, and of course I had the opportunity. And I have to say, I did ask you about who did your engine bay, and those I kind of sneaked some ideas from what you did with Cranberry. So it's a mixture of all. I tell everybody to be a car enthusiast, and then you want to be a car fabricator artist. It's the ideas have to come from somewhere. So it's what you do with the ideas. So I use a lot of from your build and several other builds, and my unique thing was just doing the single cab since there wasn't any single cabs out. I'm a real big fan of a single cab truck. So I say, we're going to try something new. And it's been hitting so far. I know a lot of people are excited to see this thing. So I really want to bring this thing out.
And that's the one thing that I love about the actual truck community is there's not really any gatekeeping. If you ask somebody, what's your wheel specs, they're going to tell you. If you ask, well, how or who did this, they're going to tell you. And there's some of the niche groups that are like, I figured it out my own, you figured it out in your own. I know I ran into that when I did the wife Subaru. Like there's a couple guys, I love their wheel fitment. Like everything was perfect. The whole setup was right. And I was like, hey, can you give me some specs? And they're like, no. And I'm like, I'll actually never do that. Someone like you or anybody walks up. If you walked up to me at a show and I didn't know who you were, how am I going to know that you're a fabricator that's going to do it yourself? Or if you're someone that's going to, hire somebody who just really likes how it's done. It's like, why keep that information from somebody?
For sure. No, I agree with that. I'm a real big, I say a educator, you know, because I want to learn. But man, I'll be honest, you know, we get calls twice, maybe three times a week, and you know, it's just questions. You know what I mean? I'm trying to do this. I see that you did this, or I'll get referred by somebody saying, hey, they said to reach out to you that, you know, and I tell everybody it's not a secret. You know, it might be a word puzzle. You're gonna probably have to sit there and try to figure it out a little, but you can get some help. Eventually, someone's gonna help you. So why not be the guy to say, you know, I helped insteed of being the guy that you mentioned, like now figure it out yourself. So now I'm still learning in this trucking industry game. You know, I love cars and trucks my whole life. You know, I grew up in this thing, and you know, I remember doing builds with my dad when you know it was you know 1510s and ZZ Top stuff, and you know, it just the enthusiast just it's innovated into something new, and I'm exploring it new. So there's always going to be a learning curve in doing something. It's like when a new camera comes out or a new microphone comes out, you got to figure it out, you know. So
Yep.
and it's the same thing with these builds. You know, it's something new. You're going to figure it out. We have the common sense. People have the common sense, but needs just a direction to get to it. And I'm glad to be part of that, giving direction or getting direction. You know, the community's been real open to me. Appreciate that.
Well, let's step back. So Jesse, as a little Jesse,
Mhm.
what inspired you to follow custom vehicles? Was it family? Like, how did you get your, bit by the bug of the custom vehicle world?
So of course, I'm not too old myself. You know, my era is early '90s, growing up, and it was my dad. You know, my dad had a shop, and he did a lot of collision work, and he did some custom work. And then as a kid, you know, to keep me away from the streets and to try to give me a skill, you know, it was the body shop. So I remember growing up and I was building lowrider bikes. Lowriders was something of the way in the '90s, you know, and '80s. And so I kind of grew into that of body work and welding. You know, I was welding at 15 years old, just trying to make something new out of metal and then fiberglassing or with body fillers, trying to make shapes out of something to be unique. So I would say it's a family heritage. You know, I'm third generation into this stuff, and
Oh, wow.
we enjoy it. So
So your grandfather was into it as well. So
yeah, of course.
you did you grow up in Houston or?
No, I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. So I grew up in San Antonio and then relocated to Houston maybe about 15 years ago. So we've been here since. And of course, when I moved here, we branched out to open my own little shop back in 2011 and 2013. We were doing good. Of course, you know, we did a lot of. I was into the collision because we were looking for the money, you know,
Yeah,
pay bills, and then
that insurance
but
work.
man, but I gotta say when you have a bug for and you love something, it was always a custom work. So I always had my own little hobby, and now the hobby is paying off. You know, to meet great people in the community in this custom world, and it's paying off now. So it's kind of how I stuck back into the custom world of things.
So when you started, you said back in 2011, was it iCar that you started or was it something else then?
So it was ICAR Houston. So it was ICAR Houston. ICAR is an acronym. It stands for Inner City Automotive Ready. A lot of people don't know that. This name goes all the way back to before there was ICAR, the education stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with that type of stuff. So it is an acronym. You know, we did grew up in the inner city part of town, so you know we just stuck with a memory for me to always remember where I came from to keep me off my high stool. You know, I got to remember roots in the grounds of the struggles. If we one day I was successful, I can keep us all humble. So that was kind of the inspiration for the name. Of course, we loved cars and we were always ready to fix on something. So when we relocated to Houston, well, it was just a perfect fit. iCar Houston, and we ran with that. We did tons of collision work, and we did that for several years until recently. I know I mentioned to you that we had some big changes for this year. So, but before we get to that, as I was going through iCar Houston, I kind of launched into the custom world, and this is kind of how we met guys like you and
Yeah.
the other community. So I changed things around and just said, okay, well, what could I do to still I still had my love for the name because it was something original. I said, well, I'm just going to cut it down to HTX. I'm going to put concepts at the bottom. I'm going to try to bring my ideas to the scene that I'm getting recognized in, and to the scene that's embraced me, which is a truck scene. And so that's where ICARHTX comes up. So it was actually for the custom side of things. So then we hit the shows, man. We've been doing this for 18, 17 is when I got involved with the truck scene. Always did custom works, always into the car scene, imports, hot rod. We did build race cars, and I did a lot of fabrication and that type of stuff. Specs with suspension to for G-force. We did all that things, and then I just fell back in love with my old roots, man. Fabricating. When I see a truck, I think of a bike. As I was trying to figure out why this spoke wheel didn't fit on my bike when I'm trying to lay this thing on the ground. So now I just see the truck is just four wheels now. So we're trying to lay these things on the ground now. So
what was your first, you said you started messing with the bikes and stuff, but once you got your license, what was the first custom vehicle you had? You have one right off the bat at 16, or?
I did. Like I said, I was into lowriders, man. I had a 1987 Cutlass Supreme. Had we did hydraulics, and it bounced everywhere. It was never pretty, because we're this 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, man. Was call ourselves grease monkeys. We had grease all over us. A piston would bust up the street, and we make it roll again, but that thing bounced everywhere. So that was one of my very first custom builds that we could say that I did with me and a couple of buddies in the house garage, and took advantage of my dad's shop, late at night. But of course, we would get ran off because it wasn't production to him. But we had some fun. So that was that, and then from there, it just evolved from there. They saw my skill, and I participated a lot in the hot rod world back in those days. When we're narrowing differentials, to fit a wheel that was a 15 by 15. I think back in the 90s, the biggest you were going to get on a pickup truck was maybe a 18, and if you were lucky, a 19, because they just weren't doing these things. These 20s was evolution of a turn of the world, man. Like, what in the world? You got a 20-inch wheel. So, but
even back then, a 17 was crazy expensive. Like us as kids, it's hard for us to go buy a 17 because you couldn't afford them. Now you can buy a 17 for dirt cheap. But
yeah,
so this is, you said, early 90s when you was doing this.
Yeah, early 90s, mid 90s. Of course, Beltic had hit the scene. This is when you heard of Centerline. Centerline was what you hear today, comparison to JTX or Intro Wheels, or Daily Specialties. I think was around at that time also, and Buttneck was something that you couldn't, like you said, you couldn't afford. If you were looking for a 17 by 10, man, your parents had to really, 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 really had to love you to give you all the money in the bank to get those wheels.
And
So
now you're 28s and 30s on these trucks that are bags. So did you ever think, though, that as a kid messing with a bicycle, that you were going to be stuffing a 30-inch wheel under the back of a truck? Like that was even going to be possible?
no, I wasn't even thinking that far. I was amazed at a 17-inch Scorpion Centerline sitting on an OBS truck or a Suburban, and that was amazing. And then the struggles it was to get those things down. You have all these. I tell everybody, the pioneer in the game are these mini truckers. The original OGs. Being from San Antonio it was a small town then. It still is, but it's just on a more modern side things of today. But to be out in Houston, and then to start being the guys, the mini truck guys in Louisiana, mini truck guys in Mississippi, the Houston guys that were doing stuff, the guys from Arizona. And then you think back, man, 20 something years ago, man, I was admiring these dudes because y'all were the pioneers of the truck world. And now look where we're at. You know what I mean? These guys, I was just talking to a good buddy of mine, and they're dying off. You know what I mean? Health, sickness, age is catching up. So I was telling them, man, if we can absorb and meet some of these guys and absorb what they had in their mind when they're in the garage making these funny frames, with these what I call spiderweb frames. Try learning it now, because eventually someone's gonna have to keep on with that.
Well, there's a lot of the big names, Dave Kindig, for example. These guys started in the mini trucks and the Volkswagen stuff because that's
Yeah.
all about any of us could afford back then. That's what you could get cheap. You couldn't get any of the big stuff cheap. I personally started out with the Honda world, but I was full mini truck. I had the tweed interior, I had the shaved door handles, the billet steering wheel. Like mine was a mini truck inspired, but even though I wasn't a mini truck guy.
Yeah.
So that was the world I ran around with as well.
Yeah, for me, my second custom vehicle was a mini truck. I was just so it was a '92 Mazda, and of course it had the old 15-inch centerline wheels. It was on the ground. Had we did our own custom graphics, and so that was things that I was involved in. Things that I love to do. I was called myself an artist. I drew on paper and tried to put that on anything I could with an airbrush or a paintbrush, and so but now, like you say, 30 years later, it's like to be heavily involved in it. I never thought I would be tucking a 28-inch wheel, even not even a 2612. These reverse wheels. When I first saw these wheels back in 2008 and nine, and man, it was amazing. Like, whoa, where have I been my whole time? I saw this stuff on hot rods, and you barely had you know, an 8-inch lip because frames were in the way. And then of course took a little just guessing and thinking outside the box. You can narrow and push things out of the way to make stuff fit if you just did the right geometry. So
Well, like what's
pretty
the SS truck that you're messing with? It's got a 28 by 16 or something on the rear of it.
on which one's that one again?
Blue one.
Oh, the for Senor Chevy's truck. Yeah, so that was a 2816 reverse. So you got a 14-inch lip, 13 and 3/4 inch lip, and huge. That thing was huge.
That thing.
So we had fun with that one. We I did have some help come in. We're doing this stuff, and like I said, I'm a collaborator. If I don't know it, I was always taught if you don't know something, the stupidest question is not asking the question. So, I reached out to a couple of local guys to get some help here. Man, we're trying to fit this wheel, and I want the geometry right. So they've extended our hand, and now that thing's out on the road, it's everywhere. It's huge. Our thing for me and our shop is the cleanness of our work. We want to make sure line wiring, geometry sitting good, paint work, coatings are right. Because that's what brings the uniqueness of a job. And so you put 3 or 4 minds together, and then of course I have to say a lot to a lot of people that ask. If it wasn't for the team that I have in the shop, I don't think we would all be doing what we're doing, because it does take multiple hands and multiple brains, to put stuff together. Fortunately, I mean, no, well, the blessing I'm going to say is I'm just a face of a lot of this stuff. So fortunately, if something's bad, then they're going to see me, and hopefully I'll
Yep.
get less frowns and more smiles than anything. So, but that's where we're at.
Well, how many employees you have at the shop?
So recently our biggest crew has been 8. We're down to 5 right now, but then like I said, we have change coming.
Okay,
Change has happened.
we'll
So
get to that.
maybe I can elaborate a little bit on that. So we recently got rid of ICAR Houston is no longer, so we don't no longer do collision work anymore. We've let that skill of things die down because we were so bombarded with the custom world, and that we couldn't focus on both sides of things. And the only way to focus on both sides of things was more revenue or more currency or more money. And to have 2 crews was kind of hard when, it's hard to find some good help. So, I'm very picky with the crew that we hold. So I hand select a lot of the guys. So I just couldn't balance both worlds. So I focused on something that I grew up with, which my passion was custom work. So we stuck with custom. So we're down to 4 guys now in the custom world. Um, us launching our new shop and got rid of the collision work for this year. We've actually sister companied a retail store. So now instead of being the end consumer in the collision center world, we're the retailer to these stores now. So now we sell the products that they need to function on a daily basis. And then that lets me focus on these custom builds that what I really love to do. You know what I mean? I'm a guy of detail, and you know, and I love it. I dream about it. I wake up to it. You know what I mean? How that airline is gonna pay, how it's gonna roll on that fender, or how it's gonna roll on that frame, and what 90 or 45-degree angle, 35, or maybe even a 28-degree. You know, how would that look rolling on the airline? So those are things that I'm in love with. I fell out of love out of just putting on a fender and putting some body filler and fixing the dent. You know,
You
this
sound like me. Lay there at night, staring at the ceiling, and your mind's going to like 14 things you're doing the next day to make sure it's right. I'm the exact same way on
yeah,
that. Whether it's a photo shoot or the podcast or a video, like I'm going to film it this way or do this with it. So we're a lot on the same page on that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
do you remember what your first vehicle you charged someone to customize? Like, is that something that's stuck in your brain?
Um, honestly, no. Um, we've done so many. You know, I got, you know, I get the question like, what's been your favorite build so far?
That was my next
They're,
one.
they're all mine. You know, everything we touch, it's a favorite to me because you know we put so much work into this job. You know, I tell people even if we failed at the job, you know, because we can't be 100% on everything. We can be complete. 99.9 is I can try to give you my all. You know, and even if I feel that we failed or if a customer leaves unhappy, because we do have those, you know, it's unfortunately that's just the world. You know,
Yeah.
there's billions of people in the world, and so that means there's billions of personalities and billions of ideas. But everything's a favorite to me, you know, because everything has a unique touch to it that the customer will never know. The employee or your co-fabricator or your painter will never know what special that vehicle has to me because you know, like you said, I stare at the ceiling at night. Okay, how are we gonna make this paint right? You know, or how can I get this metallic or this candy to flip the way the customer has described it to me? So I try to get the idea, I try to get the color, I try to get the build to a reality aspect in my brain, and that takes a toll, stress, anxiety, because you don't know until the person actually sees it and says, you know what, I love it. Or the person says, that's not what I'm looking for. So, you know what I mean? So you're nervous to that point, hopefully, that they'll say, we love it. So every build we've touched, it's been the best for me. Do we have some that has ignited us to another level? Well, yeah, you know, there's those unique ones that I can say, you know, this, I think this vehicle or this truck or this
Yeah.
car has pushed me to another level. So, but as being my favorite one that I can remember, we've done so many that people haven't even seen in the streets, or people took them home and they've disappeared off, you know, the area or whatever for whatever reasons. But
What about personal vehicles? What's your personal favorite? Is there one that you let get away that you wish you wouldn't let get away?
um, I do, I do. Of course, it's not a truck. It's a car. I had of course, when I was into my hot rod worlds and performance and motorsport stuff was, I had a 1993 Mustang Cobra that I had every sweat and tear and everything into this thing, and it had to I had to get rid of it for priority reasons. And you think back and say, man, that's the one that you really got away from me. That I even look for it sometimes. I dream and I call window shopping. I'm online trying to see if I can find something similar to it, but you know. But yeah, there is one car. Of course, it wasn't into the custom world. It was more into the motorsports stuff. Um, as for the custom world, I'm still building it, man. I think that will be the one that if I ever get rid of it, that might be the one to say I should never let that one go. That's that
Is
Dodge.
the Ram?
Is the Ram, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still building that one. I'm giving him all. I'm trying to give it all. It's been 4 years now that we've touched on this thing, and I can't wait for it to hit. So hopefully we don't get rid of it, but if we do, hopefully a few years down the line, if I do get rid of it, we'll do a podcast and tell you that's the one that got away.
So for those that are listening that don't know, so the truck we're referring to, it's a fourth gen Ram, and I think you were probably the first person to do a fifth gen front clip swap on it.
I did research. I thought I was the first. Um, I'm
Or I
the
should say for the
first
1500. I know there were some of the
1500.
2500 that were
Yeah,
done.
so I was the first to complete a fifth gen front end limited on a 1500 single cab. There was a shop out in Tyler, Texas that did one, never completed it from my understanding. So they were in the makings. I reached out to a few guys because I was tapping into the scene. You
Yeah.
know, I was trying to get ideas to see, you know, how to merge and marry these fenders together, you know, to make sure that, you know, things didn't crack on me later. And I bumped into a gentleman that knew a guy out in Tyler, Texas that was doing one. Never completed the front end. So I would say I would be the first to complete the front end, but not the vehicle. So, but we have done two. We've done three total, one being mine and two that actually went home to the customers with the fifth gen front end. So I would say I would generally take the first place on that one just because we have two vehicles that went home and they both been resold from the original owners. So they're enjoying them in the streets now.
The reason that the front end swap was done for you that don't know. So on the fourth gen Rams, you could get a standard cab Ram. Starting with the fifth gens, you couldn't. So the only way to get the new body style, which is the same as Cranberry, the same body style, the only
Mm-hmm.
way to get that look in a standard cab was to do the front end swap. So would you have to cut fenders and weld together? Did the fenders bolt right on, or
So no, we did have to cut fenders. So we had to marry the fourth gen to the fifth gen fender so we can get the light pocket to sit in well. We had to remove and replace the inner core support brackets and the inner fender braces. So where the fenders hang on to is we had to replace those corners in too, just because of the contour shape of the fifth gen. Of course, new hood. We You do a little bit of fabrication onto your horn brackets where the bumpers are going to sit. So those are pretty good intel of fabrication work that went into making this front end sit properly with the right gapping.
it's not like doing a Escalade swap on a Silverado?
Yeah, it's not even like doing the fifth gen 2500. All that stuff bolts on. You know, to do the 1500, it did take a little bit of more, I'll say, skill and a little more concentration putting in this front end. Um, there have been several people that would call, like, you know, out of California or Arizona, and I guess they've never completed because, well, I've never seen the truck, but I given a lot of people would call me, you know, hey, well, I want to, how much you charge me? Like, you know, if you're a do-it-yourself guy, I can give you a part list. You know, and I was one of those persons, you know, that if it's something that inspired someone else to do, well, man, I sleep good at night with that. You know that we did something that someone wants to do too. So I've given price parts list on this thing to a lot of people. So I just haven't seen anything come out yet. Everyone revolves back to the 2500 conversion because I'm assuming the fenders just bolt right up and it's a lot easier.
Much easier.
Yeah.
But you can't stand out in the crowd if you're doing just a bolt on. Like you got to be that person to do that different aspect to stand out at a show.
I agree. Meaning, I agree. It even walks down to what type of shoes you wear. You know, if you stand out a little bit, you get a little bit more attention. So, I agree,
Might be
especially
why,
football.
might be why I have a massive Nike collection. So
There you go.
most people never see me in the same pair of shoes twice. So
You know, for me, it's the shoes and it's the Columbia shirts that we put on our back that we can change it up and make it look good. Meaning we're, you know, it will at least get a couple of more hellos than the next person, right? Good
yeah.
marketing. So,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah, no, I do agree. And especially in this scene, you know, I tell, like, you know, we talk with the guys in the shop and I try to encourage our guys, and we got great guys, but, you know, to be open minded, man. This scene has so many people that if you would put these people in a shop, man, you would have a world class shop. You know, but everyone loves to do their own thing, but everybody has an idea, and they're great. And there's a lot of successors. You know, that's what makes this scene so great because you can walk into a show and not just be a spectator, but as a spectator walking in, you can walk out with so many ideas if your mind's just open to sit and talk and try to know these people and learn them.
That's the way I am. When you walk by and you see some mod or some little small touch someone's done, it's like, well, that I never thought of that. That's actually
Yeah,
pretty cool. Why don't I try to incorporate that into one of my builds? And there's a lot of stuff that I've picked up at shows that's worked itself into my builds.
that's true. Same here.
Um,
That's what keeps us going.
so being in Houston, as someone that's not in Houston myself, y'all have a very distinct car culture in Houston. The I guess it's the swangers that people put on them in Houston.
Yeah.
It's crazy that one city you see. I mean, I don't know how often you see them driving down the road, but we see them on the internet all the time. But you don't see them anywhere but Houston. What makes that a Houston style?
Well, for for starters, Houston is a diverse city. You want culture, you'll find it here. You know what I mean? It's like the weather. It's bipolar. You don't like the cold, wait 5 minutes, it's gonna change. So that's a blessing in itself that there's so much diversity here that you have no choice but to think outside the box. To the swanger things of Houston, not being a native from here, but just understanding the culture. The, these these spinner wheels, or these Vogue tires. It's pretty unique. You find a lot of this stuff out in the south side of Houston, or South Houston, or north side of Houston, and being unique. I would say the inner city culture of things here evolved to another creative idea to be unique and be different. And I think that's a culture that they made to say, this is us Houston guys in the inner city, and this is what we bring, and the world loved it. Because it's everywhere. People are trying to do the same thing, or people are trying to follow the trend that we have here. And it's not only the car scene, man. You got the import scene is super huge here. The motorsport stuff. You got the import. So there's just so much stuff here. When I tell on a business mindset of things, I tell a lot of people, Houston is a great city for business, man. So you want an opportunity. I mean, I think Houston would be one of the cities to try. If you can't do something in Houston, then you just weren't really hungry to do anything, because the the diversity here in this city in town is huge.
It sounds like the car culture and truck, the whole scene is big down there. So, like I said, it keeps people like you busy. Thinking of being busy though, so you're involved with some Discovery Channel stuff. Let's touch on that a little bit. How did you get into the Discovery Channel stuff? What do you do for them, and how is that going?
So last year sometime the Discovery and Espanol came into town, and they tried to touch into a new TV series called Mexicanos. It's called Sin Fronteras. So it was the show Mexicanos with Martin Baca. Sin Fronteras means without borders. So the car culture in Mexico that this other shop was involved when what is in the custom world and the restoration world, and you know of the more of the mod touring stuff, and resto pro touring stuff. They wanted to come into the US, so that's why they named it Without Borders. We can get these two car
Yeah.
cultures together and bring it together. So when they started doing their shooting and their interviewing, they started in California. And being in California, we I my interior was done out of a shop in California called California Upholsteries with Joe. So as my truck was there, they were I think I had already picked up my vehicle, but they had visited this upholstery shop, and they did some stuff with that shop. So they were looking for more, not influencers, but people involved in the automotive scene that had some diversity. So our name was mentioned. We got a phone call, and we joined the team with California, Texas, and Florida with Miami. So we did a little clippings with Miami. We did some with California. We did some here in Houston with us, with our shop being the primary shop. And then, of course, we went out looking for other small shops. So I became a consultant for, in a sense, as in my little job role, So they've used us a little bit in the um, international side of things. Um, so that's kind of where I fit my role in. But we had a nice interview. We showed them some work that we did. We last year we did the rodeo with them. So with us in Discovery, it's been a nice role. So hopefully we'll get used a little bit more this year. We're waiting. We have plans with the original shop out in Mexico, the ones that invited us to his part of his episodes. So that's kind of my involvement right now with Discovery. So we did right now we're airing the clippings that we did. It airs in the Spanish side of things, and um the international side, like Spain, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Colombia. So that's where that stuff's airing mostly than the
So
U.S.
for us that don't have, that aren't in that world, what is that show comparable to on the U.S. side? Is it like a Gas
Um,
Monkey or Can Dig It or?
Combined of all, Gas Monkey, King Dig of course, Texas Metal.
Yeah.
So it's one shop in a sense of that caliber of design that was just in a country that's trying to touch the world without borders. Trying to get every car enthusiast, trying to touch scenes with with the next best thing across town. So they're trying to bring the whole community together. So that was part of the deal that we had with them.
And it looks like that going into the Mexico side of the show scene, it seems like that's actually pretty massive right now, that I guess a lot of us in the US might not see, but you probably see more of it being in Texas and, being close to it. But how is the custom car and truck world different in Mexico than it is here?
So for one, it's huge. Many don't see it because they're like you said, it's not their local area. The truck scene, the race scene, what we call it hot rod, but to them it's racing. It's huge. It's very big. They hold massive shows over there too. There's tons of events that happen, especially with the truck scene right now. That's a scene that's just evolved. Across the border. There is a few big shows that people from our side do attend. And it is big. It's as big as what you see here, and it's just growing. It's growing. The area over there, the same bills that you would see here are maybe at caliber or maybe even better over there. They do have a lot of full size trucks, as
A
our
lot of stuff
scene is.
get here too.
Yes, and then they excuse me, the culture over there is a little different. I'm not gonna say it's different just due to tradition and customs as what the Latin culture has and what the American culture has. The American culture, the same settings that the mini truck world has and the full size truck world has, um, is a little different because of the way the custom and traditional side of things for the Latin world. But if you put it all in one, it's all the same. It's just different. It's just a language barrier. I tell everybody, with one thing I do love about this truck scene and just the whole custom world things is, we have the same passion for the same thing. We just wear different team names on our back, or we there's different clubs involved, but at the end of the day, we all strive for the same thing, and that's our enthusiasts for this truck and custom world.
Yeah, 100% on that. 100%. I know, some of the shows that seem to be popping up, stuff like the Atlanta Truck Invasion. It's like you just think, oh, it's an Atlanta truck show, but you go to that show, the vibe is completely different. Like the music, the food, the the entertainment. It's almost like a festival more than it is just a truck show where you're sitting in the tent all day.
Yeah, well, um, great way to describe it. Entertainment. I know the key guys for Atlanta Truck Invasion and the owners, and when they have their meetings, and and I've said it before, when they've had their meetings, and I've sat in on their discussions, their thing is they want to bring a whole festival. They want the best artists. They want activity. They want they want a family air, but at the same time, it's like you're walking into a fairgrounds, and it's like another rodeo. Bring it. Just now you're just bringing this custom growth community together. You got the best billboard artists that in the Latin world that you'll find at Staples Center. They're bringing them. You know what I mean? They're investing their dollar. I look at it as a good business. People tell me, well, what's your profit rate whenever you do this stuff? When you build these cars. Well, the customer should rightfully get 75% back of their money. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I look at my numbers. Well, Atlanta Truck Invasion and other shows are giving 80% back of the money back to the community because they're bringing the right entertainment, the right shows, the right vendors, the activities for the young ones.
Yeah.
So, and it's changed compared to other our past shows where it was just you hung out at the park. I remember growing up in San Antonio, and we had a Brackenridge Park, and all we did over there is we hung out, we cruised around. If you wanted to barbecue, you barbecued, or you just hung out and talked. Well, now it's evolving. Like it's changed the scene now. And it's one of the biggest shows, I would say, and one of the best shows, in my opinion, is Atlanta Truck Invasion, because they are investing, they are thinking of that spectator walking through those doors, paying whatever fee they pay to get into that. So, and they're bringing the best of the best of the truck clubs and the truck, enthusiasts and the custom builders. They're bringing the best. They're bringing the best builds that you can see on that side of the country, coming from all over the country.
If you had to go back to you as a younger kid that got into all this, would you have started in this world then, or would you have taken a different path, you think?
The older me would say that I would have definitely wanted to take the path where I'm at now from the beginning. But being a realist, and what I mean by that is, being a father, being a husband. I think I would still lead the same way that got me here, because I've learned. I've learned to appreciate what I've done. In my life. There's very few that I can say, what if, what I mean? Because I've
Yeah.
tried a lot of stuff. So I think the road that I've taken has led me to where I'm at here today at a good pace and a good rate. Now, would I've hoped that I could have learned a little things or more things back then than what me trying to learn now, of course. But I do like the footsteps that I'm in, just especially just because of the growing pains in life. I do love the work that I do now, but I think if I would have just kept into the custom world of things, I don't think I would be as good as I am now, because it was always a hobby at that point. So it took me as an individual to actually learn business, the way that I learned the business. So now that I can incorporate that into what I'm doing now, because I'm actually doing what I love to do, what I did as a hobby, now as a career. So that, if I kept that as a hobby, then, many people are have been successful keeping things as a hobby because they've hold, their secular career. But everything I've learned as a youth, I've used it as a career to this point. I've never had another job where I worked for a corporation or I worked for a company for 25 years. I've always worked for my family and for myself. So being
Well,
self-employed.
it's like my end, like, I worked, in the, soft drink industry. I was in, Pepsi for 22 years, and was doing the photography stuff on the side. So for me, that was my hobby. And a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to step away from the corporate world and pursue it on my own end. And I wish I would have done it sooner. So
Yeah.
that would have been easier to do it sooner. But here I am now, and
Yeah.
exploding every chance I get. So, what would you tell a younger kid or someone that's trying to get into working at a shop or starting a shop, whether it be collision or custom or in interior, whatever? How would you guide them to start in that job field?
Well, the first advice I would be is be consistent. Consistency is the rich. You know, you can be at your lowest point in life and have consistency, and it's balance. If you just got to be consistent in what you're doing, whatever passion you love. For you, I like your example. You loved camera. You love photography, but your consistency was with your corporation to balance out whatever you had to do. And at one point or another, that consistency led you to where we're at today. So I would tell the next generation, consistency. Learn from your older ones. You know, Today's world, we pride is a key thing, man, and we have too much of it sometimes. So pay attention to your surroundings, consistency. Don't give up. Times are gonna get hard. I've had plenty of hard, but I lay in bed and I know the hard is there, and we thrive to learn around it. That's our growing pains. That's what we learn from. That's how we learn to figure out our problem solving. I remember growing up in school, and when it came to math and the testing, man, I hated problem solving. You know what I mean? So, and now here I find myself doing it every day. In everyday life, we got to problem solve things. So, but I think what's helped me, and I think many will agree in the professional world, is consistency. If we can keep the consistency of trying to do what you want to do, everything will work out. And that's something I preach to my kids too. And whatever you love, you gotta have consistency.
With you being in the collision world, for example, for as long as you were, I hear a lot of stories where once the current generation retires out, that you don't have kids that are wanting to learn paint and body, and like it's hard for these body shops to find people that want to learn how to sand primer and all that stuff. So do you see the younger generation shine away from the automotive world, or how do we fix that?
So I do see the struggle in that end, and I do agree with the comments that people give about this generation doesn't understand the reality of the automotive world in a sense. Meaning, book wise, they're great. Man, I'm not going to say they're not, and I'm not going to say that being just because you're book smart, you're never going to have a crafty hand. But I do believe that hands-on skills have to take place with the book skills.
Yeah.
Um, I have those issues. Or I've had the issues where someone come in and they know it all. I mean, you tell them book wise, and they know from the tool all the way down to the product that needs to be used, but they lack the skill because the hands-on are not there. So businesses today, collision centers, or even custom shops that are fast-paced. Let's use a custom shops for example. You got these great shops and they're fast-paced. When you got an intern that comes in that doesn't have the hands-on and they only have the book skills, well, I think we both. It's rare that intern will stay long at this facility because the fast pace is the hands on. So
Yeah.
um, I I think to fix the problem, and if I was an educator or someone, I would do the hands on skills. Back when we grew up, I don't know if you're in the same era, but man, we had wood shop. You know what I mean? Even if you hated wood shop, you're gonna go learn
Tool
how to
shop.
turn lathe. You know what I mean? So now you're using lathe. I would use lathe for wood, but now we're using lathe for steel. You know what I mean? So if you just learn the skill, and you had to have the wood shop, you had some automotive shops, you had electronic shops. So it was
I
a
was
hands on.
I was big into the car audio side back in high school, and I took electronics in high school. Thought that was going to be where I was going to go. I did about 2 years at a community college for electrical engineering, and I was like, because I wanted to do the automotive electronic side. And then I realized that with the electrical engineer degree, I'm going to be stuck in a plant every day for the rest of my life. And I was like, nah, I'm out on that. And that's when I got into the beverage world and thought that was going to be my life. And here I am doing what my hobby was. So what
Well, I go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, one thing my dad used to always try to stick in my head, concave it was, you have to know the skill. He was one of the older generation. Go get your education, do whatever you have to do. Because back then, without the education, you weren't getting in anywhere. You couldn't
Yeah.
be, and sitting in an office if you didn't have a type of education, you didn't have an associate degree or not even a diploma. But he would always tell me, he says, give it 60 years, and we're gonna all turn all the way back around to having a skill. Eventually you're going to need a skill to succeed in this world. So I think we're back to the skill part of things. There's some people that walk into now, if you didn't have the education, then you weren't qualified to get into certain companies. And I think now you're overqualified if you have too much skill. So, balance is key. Education is great. I'm not telling anyone to drop out of school, but you have the greats that have been successful that has done things by leaving school, and some that have stayed in school. So, but the hands on is to me is key. When we hire guys on and I hand select them, they're older guys or they're younger guys, especially the younger guys. Just having the work drive that you want to get your hands dirty and you're not scared of a metal cut, then you're good. Some people don't like the paper cut, but here you're gonna get cut, and if you're okay with getting cut and just not severely damaging yourself, then and you'll work out in the shop. So
Is it even
yeah,
working on a vehicle if you don't leave with some blood being lost? I mean, I think that's a requirement. If you touch a wrench, you have to bleed at some point. Am I right?
you gotta bust a knuckle. If you don't bust a knuckle, if you're scared to bust a knuckle, that my dad used to say, you gotta bust your knuckle. I'd be like, bust my knuckle? What do you mean bust my knuckle? He goes, man, if you don't ever bust your knuckle, you're never going to give it the force that you need to give it. So eventually it's going to slip. It's going to slide. Got to bust a knuckle. Don't be scared to bust a knuckle. So
And
don't
we
want to get hurt, but
cuss and throw the wrench across the shop and then, move on to the next one.
that's it. So, but yeah, I think the hands-on would be back to the original question. I think to fix the problems that we may be getting into in this automotive industry is hands-on. If you can give these young entrepreneurs, man, some hands-on, I think though everything will work out well.
So with your changes with the shop this year, where do you see ICAR Houston? Where do you see it in 5 to 10 years? What is your goal with the company and the scene?
Well, right now with the scene, I think shout outs to everybody that's welcomed me. You know what I mean? Especially you. It 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 takes a lot to have someone trust you, and then to have at least some bearer of reputation. So 5 years from now, with the people that I have that are surrounding me, that are encouraging us, that are supporting us, I see ourselves thriving well. I see ourselves accommodating the truck community worldwide, especially locally and within our country, because it's growing. It's still not everywhere, but with guys like yourself that's been in the scene for 30 plus years, that's known, the aspects of the old guys to introduce or to even acknowledge, this was the guy that helped do this, or look, these are the guys that kind of created this. Um, I see us, if we can do our part as iCar Houston, as Jesse, as a slash enthusiast in this scene, 5 years, maybe even 10 years, I see us evolving with the people that are around us. We can't do it without you and Mitch out in North Carolina. The guys out in Sal and Atlanta Trucking Base. Del Carlos here with Texas Hold'em. You got guys in California, Dan with Trucking Around. You got the guys in Arizona. You got all these people trying to do what they can for the truck environment. I can't do it without them because I'll have nowhere to go. So when these guys support us and they invite us, then it makes us want to thrive harder. Okay, what build are we going to take? What can we take that's unique? What can we take that, or what do we do to, to at least get some recognition? So, without the support that y'all guys give, we wouldn't be here today. And I know with the support that y'all are giving us, I say 5 years is right around the corner, and we'll be successful because we have the help from the community.
For sure. How do people find you? You know, they listen to this, they listen to your story, they want to know more about you, the shop, whatever. How do people find you online and see what you're up to?
So one of our biggest thing right now is Instagram. So of course, our Instagram page is ICARHTX. A DM. They got any questions, they want to know a little bit more about us, or if they just have, I don't know, it can just be an educational thing. And if it's something that we can help, don't just drop us a DM. We'll definitely reach out and try to get so. Or if you see us at a local show, we're definitely more than welcome to embrace everyone. So
So what you're
that's a
saying is people need to reach out and ask you when you're going to finish the RAM is what we need to
there you
have
go.
everybody
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. No, it's coming soon. We have plans for this past year, and I I always say, everybody, I made the executive decision. I made the decision to leave it where it was at now because I wanted it done right. I've always made the mistake with a lot of our stuff that we've done, even for customers, and all this stuff is a learning curve for me. I think every day, and if I can live to be 80 years old, I'm always going to think and try to learn something. So, um, even like I say, even with customers, I try to move too fast, or I try to I don't want to skip any steps. If I don't want to do it for my customers, I definitely don't want to do it for me. I took the RAM out a few times, and it took me, I think, 7 shows to get it back into the shop. So I know if I take it back out again, it won't go back in. So I think it needs to sit to get it done. So I tell the customers this all the time, like, come on, Jess, I need my truck this day, and they're like, man, well, let's don't do this show, and then I'm doing it. So it's kind of like, well, you got yours. Well, I'm gonna take my own advice, leave it down, let's get it done, and hopefully 2024 will be my year to shine, and we'll let everybody to see it.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing it. It's always been one that stood out to me just because it was so different and the interior is just crazy. So
Yeah.
it's definitely one that I've kept an eye on for a while. So
Good. I appreciate it. Well, like I said, yours, Cranberry, was the inspiration to this, man. So, and then it's awesome that I'm sitting here talking to you today. So, um,
I, I appreciate it and thanks for coming on. Hopefully our listeners enjoyed listening to your story and they'll check you out more. So thanks for coming on, Jesse.
thank you, man. Appreciate it.